Hi again, it's me, and it's day 2 of my vlogging. And if I squint a lot, it's because I'm in that stage of life where I kind of need glasses, but the doctor kind of says no. So sometimes I can't see, especially after a long day like today. Today I want to go into my background and my anxiety, kind of where it started and what it's done to me in my life and how it's affected my life. And maybe you can relate. I know anxiety runs in my family. It is hereditary, along with mental illness, but definitely the anxiety I got from my mom. The first anxiety attack I ever had, I'm going to put this in 2 different categories, because you can have a panic attack, and that's kind of one thing, or you can have generalized anxiety, which most people, from what I know, I'm not a doctor, but what happens is you have your first panic attack, and then it can lead into generalized anxiety if you don't handle it. So for me, my first anxiety attack, I was 17. I was driving on the freeway to my job, and all of a sudden, as I'm driving, something came over me. My heart just started racing. All I could do was think, where's the next exit? I'm dying. I got to call my dad. I'm dying. And this is before cell phones, because I'm 48. So I pull off. I find the nearest payphone, and I call my dad, and I told him, I said, Dad, I think I'm dying. I can't even drive. I can't even think straight. I think I need to go to the hospital. And where my work was about 10 minutes past his work. And he said, well, try to just get it back to my work. And I said, Dad, I can't get back on that freeway. I'll take the back streets, but I'm not going on the freeway. So I calmed down a little bit, got in the car and drove to his work, and felt much better and safer because my dad was there. And kind of had an idea what it was, but wasn't totally sure. And suddenly they just started coming. I made it home that day, but it got to the point where I was having such panic, such anxiety, that I couldn't leave my house. There was a point where I stayed in my house for 30 days because I was too afraid to go outside. I didn't want to feel that experience again. If you have ever felt that experience, you know what that feels like. To me, it reminds me of this. It reminds me of something that scares you extremely. Like, I always go back to this memory. I remember one time TPing with my friends, and you're quiet, it's 2:00 in the morning, you're TPing someone's house, and suddenly the light goes on, and you hear the door start to open. And I remember that feeling in my heart just racing, and I don't think I could ever run so fast in my life. And I was home in 2 minutes, and this guy was 10 minutes away. And so I think what happens is this adrenaline rush just comes to you out of nowhere. And it's the most frightening feeling, because you could just be sitting here, you got your pencil, you're doing homework, you're working, you're at work, you're with your kids, and suddenly this rush of adrenaline comes in, and you don't know how to handle it. That's the best way I can describe a panic attack. And what happens is I got a book right away on anxiety because I knew my mom suffered from it. And what I learned was that usually the first place it happens is the place you avoid. So because mine happened in the car on the freeway, I was scared to death to drive on the freeway because I thought it was going to happen again. So I avoided the freeway. And like I said, I stayed home for 30 days because I was so scared. And I would have my mom take me places. And mind you, I was 17. We'd go shopping and stuff. And I remember going into this big mall or this big super center, and I remember just holding onto the cart, and I wanted to get out of the house, and I wanted to go shopping so bad, but I was constantly in this phase of panic or fear, and it's so scary. It's absolutely so scary. I don't know. I don't think it matters what age you are. It's the most scary feeling because you don't know when or if it's coming. So back to that. For me, I was born to have anxiety, trust me. I had a mom, like I've told you in the last video, that she struggles with anxiety, depression, and she's also paranoid schizophrenic. I've watched her have anxiety attacks her whole life. Back then, in the 70s and the 80s, 90s, they didn't talk about mental illness. They thought that you were weird or crazy, or they didn't think it was a medical problem, that it was something in your mind. But I obviously am a very smart, educated woman. I know it's not in your mind. It's something that truly happens. So for me, I go back to when I was about 10 years old, and this is the first trauma that I remember. My mom had a mental breakdown, and I had to watch it. And I have 3 brothers. One's older by 2 years, then 7 years younger, and then 9 years younger. And it didn't affect them as it affected me. My older brother was already dabbling in drugs, so wasn't really there. The younger two, too young to understand what it meant. For me, watching my mom have seizures and flail on the ground and not recognize me and be scared to death when I walked in a room, my mom thought that we were going to chop her up into a million little pieces. Crazy stuff that I had to deal with as a young girl. From that point on, even once I got into junior high, I remember my mom, she kept me out of school for like 7 weeks to help her with the kids because she couldn't handle it. By the time I was 15, I was watching the kids, I was cleaning the house, I was making dinner, and I got to a point where my youngest brother one time called me mom, and I said, "I'm not your mom," and I just cried thinking, God, it's not fair. It's not fair. It's not fair that someone has to be given so much responsibility at such a young age. And I took it upon myself to be part of the adult life. I felt like I needed to know what was going on. I needed to know about the finances, what's going to happen with mom. It was always, no one ever told me, you know what, Jen, you're just a kid, you're 10, we'll take care of you, we got this covered. So in my mind, I'm thinking, I need to handle this. And I wasn't able to share all these feelings. And women, there's a statistic that women have a 50% higher chance to have anxiety than men. And as a matter of fact, there's 40 million people over the age of 18 that struggle with anxiety just in America alone. So, I mean, it's out there. It's real. It makes you change your normal living standards. What you would do in a normal situation, you think ahead, you think about the future, what's going to happen to me, is this going to happen to me again? But when you have trauma like I did, it's PTSD. I mean, you're living with this stuff and it's not getting off your chest. Where's it going? It's getting pushed down, and until you find the right people that can help you, it's not going to get better. So I went to my mom and I told her, I said, I have all these fears and this anxiety and I want to get counseling. So my first stint of therapy was when I was 17. I don't remember it working that well, but maybe I was too young to get it. Again, I had a really bad length of time when I was about 19, 20 that had really bad anxiety. I couldn't leave the house. I had to drive to my therapist, and I remember there was a bridge over the freeway between my house and some time, and then over this freeway bridge, overpass, and then to get to her office. And in my mind, I would fear the thought of having to drive to this appointment, but I knew I had to. And I'd be scared to death. I would clench onto the wheel and I'd hold on tight and just, I'd get there and I'd feel so good. And she's the first person that ever really explained anxiety to me and what it meant. That you keep throwing, this is how she said it, you keep throwing these apples in this water barrel, what happens? Pretty soon they're going to overflow because you haven't handled the apples that were previously in there. I know, kind of stupid scenario, but it made sense to me. So eventually the panic attacks lessened, but the length of the anxiety increased. And there would be points that, it could be last a month, a year. In my early 20s, I would have stints of it and I could do normal things and be around friends and have a job and live my life. But there were times where I felt hopeless, helpless, and I felt like there's nothing I could do. Moving forward, I even had a brother that it was about 13, 14 years ago. He called me about 11 o'clock at night, and you could tell something bad had happened. He was freaking out, and he said, Jen, I think I'm having an anxiety attack. I don't know what to do. So my advice to him was, you need to catch up to where the adrenaline has you. Start walking around the room and talk. Let's talk about something else. And I got his mind off it. had him walk so his heart rate would catch up to where the anxiety had taken him, and it calmed him down. But that goes to show you, it runs in family. So he had some things that obviously affected his life too. We don't share about it a lot now. I don't know really how he feels about mental illness, but he sees the struggle, and now I see it in my daughter. She's 19. She's a drug addict. I'll have to share about her later. There's a long story of the trauma I'm going through with her. But if you don't deal with this, if you don't seek help, I don't see that you're going to get better. You can read all the books you want, but you really need a therapist that can deal with anxiety. I've started this new EMDR, which is a way that they take your old trauma in your life and they use stimulation to your REM, like your sleep pattern, and they redirect that negative memory into a neutral memory. That's what I just started this week, and I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that it's going to help me. Like I said, I have been seeing a therapist, and it's great to talk to her, but my anxiety is still there. And you know what? I don't want to live like that anymore. I'm hoping the EMDR really does the trick. Another thing you can do is cognitive thinking. You got to think positive. Don't. Okay, sorry about that. I got interrupted. I asked people not to interrupt me, but unfortunately it happens. After my dad passed in 2000, my mom lived with me for 18 years. And it was very difficult because she is the every time I talk about anxiety or my life or the things that have happened, everything kind of goes back to my childhood when I was 10. I don't blame her for anything. I'm not angry with her. But it all stemmed from when I had to deal with all this emotional trauma at 10. And so she lived with me for 20 years. A few months ago, I said, you know what, I'm done. My son went to the Air Force. My daughter was in rehab. I said, I'm getting my own place. You guys can all leave. I got my own place. I had it for a few months. And then my daughter got out of rehab, stayed with me. She's back in one. Another story. But thank God she's in one. But my mom, my brother kicked her out, and she came to stay with me because I'm the go-to girl. I'm the only girl in the family, and somehow it's like she gets dropped off my porch, and what are you going to do? So we're trying to find an alternative for her living situation, but haven't yet. And that was her that interrupted me. And what I wanted to say was that because of that early trauma, a lot of times what triggers me is my mom. I'll give you a couple examples. About 8 years ago, I was at home with the kids, and my mom came out of the bedroom, and she wasn't making complete sentences. She was, I gotta go to 7, the dog, and I started freaking out. It brings me back to that scared 10-year-old girl. And I called my brother. I'm like, you gotta get over here. Something's wrong with mom. And he came over. He saw the situation. He said, go take your kids to the park. I'll take care of this. And ended up taking her to the hospital. But I couldn't even enjoy my kids at the park because I was that scared 10-year-old girl. And that's where I go when I get this anxiety. Another situation just about 2 years ago, she calls me one day and she said that her deceased dog told her that if she put the cat in the fireplace that he would come back to life. I know that sounds crazy to you guys. It's my life. I'm used to it. It's her mental illness. It's her paranoid schizophrenia. It's her anxiety. It's everything. And I said, Mom, you're going to kill the cat. You can't do that. And I called my brother. I said, you need to race home and go save your cat. Mom's about to put him in the fireplace. So my brother got there and calmed down the situation. And later when I talked to her, she goes, oh, I put a piece of bacon in there instead. I said, well, that was a good idea, Mom. But same thing, takes me back to that scared 10-year-old girl. I still don't know how to handle it. And even after years of therapy, it takes me back to that scared girl. And how do you handle life when you're 48 and you're a mom, a single mom at that, and handle adult situations when a fear comes upon you and takes you back to a child? It's sad. It's sad. And for the people that don't believe in anxiety, look at me. I'm pretty normal. I'm trying to improve my life. That's why I'm doing these videos. I kind of have a 6-month plan on what I want to do. I want to be able to improve my life and help others. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm sick of the anxiety brings on depression. The depression for me would bring on eating, or most recently alcoholism. I drank off and on for the past 14 years. I do have 11 months sober today. But that's something I struggled with. But this time I went into rehab. I thought I had to save my daughter, but it was time to save myself. And the best thing I could have ever done was go into rehab, handle my alcoholism, because it dealt with the trauma with my mom. It's not all gone, but it helped. And it's helped me stay sober. I've been sober 11 months, so that's a good thing. Sometimes it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. As long as you're moving forward, you're moving forward. So I don't want you to feel alone. If you've felt this way before, please reach out to a mental health provider. I have a great psychologist. You can reach out. It's so easy to Google people that handle anxiety, counselors, MFTs. They're all out there to help you, and you need to ask for help. Don't be afraid. You're not weird. You're not crazy. It's something, like I said, 40 million Americans suffer with, and it can be cured, and you can live a normal life again. And that's my goal. That is my goal. I looked up some really good websites. There's one called health.com, and the article is 12 Signs You Might Have Anxiety Disorder by Amanda McMillan. So you might want to check that out. The other one was Anxiety Center, CENTRE.com. They had a lot of good information on the signs that you could have anxiety disorder. So I'm going to continue to work on this. I had a great day today, actually. Some very good things happened, which I'll share later. But for now, today was a good day. And any good day I can mark down in my book is a blessing. It's definitely a blessing. So I'm going to sign off for now, and leave any comments. Reach out to me. Love to talk to you. Have a great night. Thanks. Bye.